teachers doing? I am so excited to come at you. I've got like just a frizzy hair mess going on today. I just, it's hard to just do it all the time. Anyway, good afternoon. It's afternoon now. I am really excited. Katie, who a lot of you kind of know through this group and through some of our trainings, is one of the people that I work with at Classroom U to bring valuable content to you guys as much as we can. And so one of the things that we've talked about is just doing a regular Tuesday afternoon strategy session, kind of a mini training, if you will, on a variety of different things that we know are really effective towards getting to 100% of our students learning 100% of the time. And so this strategy that I'm going to talk about today is really more about a mindset, and then there's strategy that comes behind it. And so as we were kind of coming up with things that we want to be working with you on, we did a poll and we got lots of information about what you wanted. I want to be able to give you things that are further sighted than just the situation that we're in right now. We know that there's lots on online learning and figure out how to get students involved, and we'll work on trying to support you in those things as well. But we also want you to think longer term and bigger, and some of the things that we train teachers on all around this country are very, very transformational in what we do in the classroom. And so I want to make sure that we're giving you some of that too. So today's strategy, we're really going to talk about mindsets today. And they're so important because what we believe dictates what we do. When I am in classrooms, I can tell right away certain beliefs that teachers kind of have because of the way that they may answer a question, or that they respond to a student, or respond to feedback. And we all have certain mindsets, and we should. So when we say mindset, it doesn't mean bad. It just means is the mindset, the thing that we have to ask ourselves is the mindset serving me and my students? Is it empowering me? A lot of you probably know Carol Dweck and the work that she's done on mindsets, and we can talk about growth mindset and fixed mindsets. We're gonna take that to a little bit of a different level today. But fixed mindsets always have consequences to them, and sometimes that's fine. And we're totally willing to have that. Like, I have a total fixed mindset that my kids should make their bed every morning. I do. And the consequence of that is that they get annoyed with me. But I'm working on teaching them something bigger than that. And so I do have a growth mindset, though, on how I teach them those kinds of things. And it's not that I'm not open to feedback, but I will say I'm pretty fixed on that. But what I want you to do in this training is to have a growth mindset about these mindsets, to have an open mind about where you think you fall in. And let me tell you why this is so important, whether we're doing online learning or not. I very much believe that our mission as teachers is to ensure that 100% of our students are learning, they're engaged, they're connected with us 100% of the time. Now, I will say all day long, I know that that goal sounds lofty and it sounds big. And I have had teachers straight out argue with me about that goal. And I understand that it's huge. And is it possible to get 100% of students engaged in learning and with you 100% of the time? Well, it's very lofty, I will say. But how do we fight for anything less than that? How do we sit back and say anything less than that's okay? Are we going to get it all the time? No. But we're always striving for it. We're looking for it. We're actively working towards it. Okay? And so it's just, I always give the example of a doctor. A doctor knows that 100% of his patients aren't going to be cured. Let's say he's an oncologist. 100% cure rate is unheard of. But he can't go into every client, every patient with anything less than that goal, right? And that's how we have to kind of go at our students and our teaching and our purpose. So we're going to talk about that today because there are things that are going to hold us back from that 100%. So we're going to dig into that. I am coming at you on Zoom, into Facebook, and I'm streaming live onto YouTube, which is pretty cool. And I'm going to be able to share my screen, all thanks to Zoom. So even if you're not using Zoom for your classes, for everyday teaching in a Zoom class, there are still so many amazing ways that you can use Zoom and record your lessons. I always say, make your own Khan Academy, and you're going to have this forever to be able to use. So just think about that. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go over a little bit of, let's see, can you guys see this? Okay, by the way, when I am on Zoom and doing this, I cannot see your comments. So that's okay. I'm also working on 2 screens, so I'll look over a little bit, but let's talk about this. 100% is possible. Okay, now I have been in many classrooms where we have 100%, but also the bigger thing is teachers know exactly where they are when they're really cognizant of who's engaged and who's not. Now, there are tons of strategies to be able to get to 100%, and I will do mini courses and mini lessons on all of that stuff. I'm actually working on an online course for teachers on exactly this, and it's going to be super meaty and comprehensive. But these like mini free trainings I'm going to give you are going to help you get there too. So this though is going to be around our beliefs, because our mindsets dictate our beliefs, which dictate our actions every single time. We don't even always realize it. And it's funny, I've been working with teachers for so long in so many different schools all around the world that I can almost see it in action in just a few minutes. And so you'll know what I mean a little bit as we dig in. So let's talk about the mindsets that we really, first, the mindsets that most teachers are sitting on, and me included, and then where our mindset really needs to be, where we need to be situated, okay? So let's take a look at these 3 typical teacher approaches, okay? One of them is enabling, okay? And so I want you to be thinking, as I'm teaching right now, where do you fall? What do you tend to sit into more? Because let me tell you, you're gonna be on one side or the other. It's work to be in the middle. And it's still work for me. And I've been teaching this for years and years and years, okay? So are you in, there's 2 types that I typically see. One that is more enabling, that and we'll get into what that means in a second. And then there's the other side that's more controlling. And then there's this piece in the middle, but it is not a combination of enabling and controlling. It's actually its own thing. It's its own kind of teacher approach. And that I call consistent and caring, okay? And it's not to say that the other ones aren't caring at all, but this is kind of where I want us to aim for, and you'll see why. So I want you put comments in, even though I can't see them right now, I'll comment on them later. I want you to comment while you're watching this about which you think you are. Are you more enabling or are you more controlling? I'll go over these right now. So enabling, a teacher with more of a kind of this mindset or approach around enabling, or this approach around enabling has kind of a mindset where they lead with their heart. Okay. You might be scared of responses, scared of holding kids accountable or consequences or anything like that, because you're afraid a little bit of how they're going to respond. And it's just easier not to get them too upset or too triggered, right? Maybe you avoid that productive struggle where it might be hard for kids and they struggle and they get frustrated, but we know that kind of that productive struggle is good for them, but that's hard for you to let them do. You want your students to be happy. People that are more enabling, and this is a continuum, right? You might not be like full force, but you could tend to have more of these attributes. Or you want to be liked or cool. And very often a result of enabling, teachers that do more of this kind of style have lower expectations for kids without even realizing. Maybe you make excuses for kids and don't know it. So I'll give you a really good example of a time. I am absolutely more enabling in the classroom. That's where my go-to is. I taught in inner city schools for most of my career, and I came from a very different background. I was teaching kids that didn't look like me, that didn't have a background as me. I couldn't totally relate, especially when I was 21 years old and in the classroom. And I remember I had this group of students when I was 21, and they did some amazing work on this interdisciplinary project, and they were asked to be on the radio. And so I was able to pick up a couple of kids in my little Suzuki Samurai that I had, and we went to the radio station, and it was so cool. They made rap songs and they performed them on the radio, all about the city of Hartford, Connecticut that we were in, and it was incredible. They were so proud of themselves. And so I dropped kids off at their various houses. And the last kid, Luis, who I dropped off, he said to me, Miss, you gotta drive away real fast, and I'm gonna run in because I have a gang after me and I don't want him to get either one of us. And I remember thinking, what? How is that even a thing? And I was blown away. And I have come to realize my own privilege in not understanding that that was a thing. But at the time I didn't. And so I drove away really fast and I was scared. And I went back and talked to my team. I was a middle school teacher. And I said to them, we can't make Luis do his homework. He's got a gang after him. That is not fair for us to make him, hold him accountable to doing his homework when he's got bigger and harder issues at home to deal with. And my colleagues agreed. And we were like, yeah, that's terrible. No, we shouldn't make him do that. Well, we lowered our expectations for him. And to this day, I talk about that story because the minute we stopped expecting, now this is a kid that was on the radio because he did some amazing work. And because of my own bias, because of my own enabling tendencies, because I cared so much and loved him and just felt bad, I didn't make him do the things that he needed to do. And he didn't do well in school, and we didn't hold him accountable. And I really struggle with that story because he ended up going into the gang that was after him. And I ended up going to his funeral, and it was horrendous for me to remember and think about. Had I given him something else to focus on? I knew this was going on in his life, and I was scared, but I also lowered my expectations for him. So I say that to you very personally because it isn't, you're not a bad person when we enable. It is all from the heart, and it all is because we love so deeply, and we don't want to see kids hurt. But I needed to give him another option, and I didn't. So let's talk about what it means to be controlling. So there's a need to keep control, right? And to have things go a certain way. You might focus on content more than kids, or thinking about how much pressure you have to fulfill the needs of the curriculum and not thinking as much about, are the kids learning it as much as am I getting through it? There might be some blaming going on. Well, if these parents were able to fill in the blank, if this principal blank, or if this kid ever showed up or ever did his homework blank, right? And we tend to blame outside factors instead of looking at what we could be doing differently. The relationship, although you might feel you have a relationship, is it based more in fear? Do kids comply because of a fear, because of the control, or because they're truly engaged and want to learn? Because they truly know you love them, or because they're scared, right? Is it teaching or learning that is your job? And if it's again, this is all on a continuum, but you'll know who you are if you tend to go more on the controlling side. So one thing that was really interesting when I reflect on my own mindsets and my own approaches as a teacher, I was definitely more enabling. But when I started to lose control in the classroom, I would get to be more controlling because I felt like, okay, well, I need to like rein it in and yell or get really much more strict. And that wasn't working for me either. I also am definitely more controlling at home with my kids than I am in the classroom. But I want you to think about whether or not that resonates with you. And then I want us to think about this place, not in the middle, because it's not like a little bit of this and a little bit of that. It's not a little bit enabling, a little bit. It's its own thing. And the mindset, the approach that we need to have so that all kids are learning is around the idea of leading with our head and our heart together, that one doesn't supersede the next. That we have a no excuses culture. That means that what goes on in my classroom, I am fully of control of. And I don't have control of these other outside factors, and they don't matter as much as what I can do in my classroom. So if a kid has no shoes, if a kid comes to school late every day, what can I do to support that? The parents aren't involved. What can I do to help that student? Okay. They're building consistent and caring educators have life-altering relationships. So it isn't just that you greet them at the door, although that's important. Do they know that you love them? Do they feel it? I always talk about love languages, and all of us have different love languages. If you don't know about love languages, you should go look it up. But each of us receive the message of being cared for differently. Do you know what that is for your kid? I will say that my daughter's third grade teacher went to her basketball game, and it was the only teacher that ever went to any sort of activity outside of school. She still talks about that now, and she's in ninth grade. So that life-altering relationship is different in a consistent and caring teacher. They're motivated to be culturally relevant, understanding that I don't know your background and your culture and the way that you're living. And it's not about sympathy, but it's about empathy and about understanding and seeking to understand rather than quickly being understood. Remember, we are in a position of power as teachers. And how can we work with our students so that they really feel cared for? This is the key, you guys. I care too much about you for you not to be successful. I should have cared enough for Luis to say no. Because he has a gang after him, he has to do his homework. He has to elevate his game because he needs this education more than most. So that high expectations based in high care, that you know your kids and you love on all of them. Now, there may be kids you don't necessarily like, but they shouldn't know it. And what's really funny is I coached a teacher once who had a group of girls that were in high school, and they were not the most likable girls. They got in a lot of trouble. They were rude and just really struggled with building relationships. And when we coached this teacher, she said, I don't like them. And it was understandable. But we talked and we talked and we recognized why the girls were the way they were. And she decided one day she was going to work to like them. And she started building a relationship with them, and it was unbelievable what ended up happening. Those girls got so close to her. And I remember on graduation day, the tears, it was incredible. And the teacher says, when I decided to like them, I fell in love with them. So it's really powerful. But here is the big belief. Your mindset is around the fact that 100% is your goal. 80% might be what we look for in terms of gains or success in standardized testing or an IEP goal or whatever it is. And that's fine. But what we really want is that 100% of your kids are learning 100% of the time. And a consistent and caring teacher with high expectations based on high care is fighting for that always, and doesn't stop until you get there. But you know when that means? It means you're never really stopping. But I don't want you to ever think that that means you were just working 24/7. It's about working smarter, not harder. And teachers who are consistent and caring have strategies that they use to hold all kids accountable, to have high expectations, to be able to say, I care too much about you for you not to be learning. So therefore, you're going to pick your head up and you are going to engage with us. There are so many strategies out there that we can put forth so that we get closer and closer to 100%. And so that's part of what my goal is in this group and in our YouTube channel. We're going to be doing a podcast, and we're going to be releasing some courses too. So these are all the things that I'm working towards. I have seen 100%. I know how to get to 100%, and I am very willing and wanting to be able to help you get there too. So what I want you to do is think, okay, which kind of attribute, which mindset do you lean towards? Are you more enabling or are you more controlling? And what is it going to take for you to get to more of that consistent and caring approach? Now, I told you, I am more enabling in the classroom. I'm more controlling at home. Those are natural. Those are the way our personalities kind of lead us. It's work to be that consistent and caring teacher. It is not necessarily natural. But anytime we're aware, we can do more. I always say, when you know, you can do. So it's about awareness and self-reflection in those areas and working more towards that place that we want to be for all of our kids. So I hope that's helpful. Love to know your comments. Please, please, please. And have an awesome night. Bye.